There is a third composition, beyond that which is known to Mike. It is a composition as fast as grace and as timeless as insanity. It is the middle sound between bright and mellow, between defiance and supposition, and it flies between the spit of Mike's fears and the plummet of his courage. This is the composition of intimidation. It is an area which we call the hindsight zone. Welcome back for part 3 of my behind the scenes series about my album THENCE. Today we're going to be looking at the creepy one, Summerisle. This one was originally going to be simply an ambient, meditative thing. The creepiness sort of, crept in, I suppose. And since this track follows Mountain High, which is about the beauty of remote places, I quickly found a role for it. It's a warning. A warning about being realistic and not taking stupid chances. Even the most beautiful places can harbour hazards, and the most obvious, in the mountains at least, is weather. But other much rarer possibilities exist, even if only as vague fears. You might laugh, but one thing that slightly bothered me whenever I was out making time-lapse sequences was the idea that wild boar now roam around Britain. Apparently this has been true since 1987, when the Great Hurricane damaged some fences around an enclosure and they escaped. I know it's unlikely that I'd encounter them, but frankly, I really don't fancy the idea. Mind you, there are more hazards in some other countries. When I shot this time-lapse of the Milky Way in a clearing in a wood near the Grand Canyon, I was blissfully unaware of possible dangers. It was only later that I was informed that mountain lions were in the area. Again, a very low risk factor, but not a pleasant thing to contemplate. Summerisle is a fairly sedate sort of piece, although there is a weird tension in it. In this video I'm going to talk about some of the more unusual musical components I used. Let's jump into the middle part first and look at the whistle duet. I've been playing the whistle regularly since I moved house in late 2021 and was finally able to practice without annoying the neighbours. I'm teaching myself, so I'm probably doing some things wrong, but I'm having a great time. Now I'm used to keyboards where generally you hit a key and the sound comes out straight away. With a wind instrument it's different because you have to have your fingers in place before you blow. So effectively you're fingering ahead of the beat. I'm sure wind players are completely used to this and have no problem with it, but take it from me, for a keyboardist it's a bit of a nightmare. Using an acoustic instrument seemed like a good plan because I wanted Summerisle to have a vaguely folk horror vibe. Perhaps some of you recognise where the title comes from too. I have two whistles. One is an MK Pro low F whistle with a nice mellow tone. The other is a Lear high D, which I bought more recently. The Lear has an edge to it and cuts through well on recordings. I thought it would be a good idea to write a duet, but since the whistles are in different keys, this was a bit tricky. They're not fully chromatic instruments, so the scales you can play are constrained, especially if you're not an advanced player. I began by writing out all the notes I could comfortably play on each whistle, and then used those notes to compose the parts. All this can be a bit confusing. If you play, for example, a tenor saxophone which transposes in B flat, playing a C produces a note that's actually B flat. On a whistle a similar thing is going on. The bottom note is whatever key the whistle is in, but because many cheap whistles are in D, it's natural to learn to sight read by playing in D major. Therefore, if I play my low F whistle, the fingering I've learned as D produces an F. Transposing up a minor third like this is something normally associated with E-flat instruments such as alto saxophone, so my brain breaks a little when I think of my whistle as in F, because then I'm expecting it to be a fourth above concert pitch. And it isn't. Anyway, here's the duet with the sheet music on screen so you can follow along. The low F whistle is playing the lower part. A while ago, I bought a Cosmos pedal. This is one of the marvellous creations from Soma Laboratory, designed by Vlad Kramer. It's a set of delays of various lengths that mix the delayed sound back into their inputs, meaning you can build up a texture as you go. Back when Summerisle was going to be a purely ambient piece, I decided to use it with my nylon stringed acoustic guitar to make an interesting sonic wash. I should be very clear that I am not a guitarist. I know a handful of chords and can play well enough to chill out, but that's as far as it goes. I decided to make the guitar sounds with a sampler. I used an altered tuning on the guitar, with the D string lowered to C sharp and the E string raised to F sharp. I sampled all the open strings and placed them on the white notes in the first octave. The second and third octaves contained the harmonics. And octaves 4 and 5 had a series of 15 samples covering all the possible combinations of two strings being played at once. I triggered various samples pretty much randomly. Actually, I made a mistake here. I based the tuning on the parts I'd written for the whistles, but I used the low F whistle part and had forgotten that it was transposed, so the guitar ended up out of tune. By the time I wanted to add the whistle duet, the only way to fix this was to retune the sampler so that it was in tune with the whistles. I had the idea to do this from the start of the piece, and then after the whistle duet had finished, gradually change it back to the real tuning. This is actually why there's a slow descent in pitch about halfway through the piece, and that's one reason why it ended up creepy rather than just relaxing. What you're now hearing is everything I just said processed through the Cosmos pedal. You can hear how well it builds up textures. Of course, it's processing my speaking voice, which is not musical, but you get the idea. Let's take a look at this. It's the Expressive E OSMOSE. For anyone who doesn't know, this is a revolutionary expressive controller, featuring new ways to modify sound based on finger movements and forces. The keys can move sideways for vibrato and pitch bends, or introduce a sound extremely quietly when pressed very slowly. Every note does all of this individually. Other expressive controllers are available, for example the Linstrument, which I use as well. But as far as I know, this is the first time all of this control has been added to a keyboard that can also be played in the normal way. Actually, honourable mention should go to Touch Keys, a system I tried for a while, in which sensors are stuck to the surfaces of the keys so that software can read the position and pressure of the fingers on the key. Unfortunately, this was a niche product and is no longer sold, but it worked very well, as long as you didn't mind rolling your sleeves up for a rather tricky DIY construction project. The OSMOSE can do other tricks too. For example, this is called pressure glide. The relative pressure on each of two notes determines where the glide is along the continuum between them. It's even possible to set a maximum range for this, so that you can use it while holding a different note or chord further away on the keyboard. Then there's the shake gesture. OSMOSE also has some extremely intriguing sound effects presets, which is something that isn't mentioned much. I used a number of these on Summerisle to produce the disturbing little noises that feature throughout the piece. Here are the ones I chose. Bird Whistler. crackling things. Creaker. Kinetic overtones. Geiger insects. Sigh squelches. Theo's bicycles. Or is it Teo? That last one with the bicycle sounds is astonishing. I'm not sure whether the Egan matrix, which is the sound engine used to power the OSMOSE, allows long samples to be played back, although I believe short samples can be used for things like spectral analysis and granular playback. Nevertheless, it's astonishing that someone managed to make the exact sound of bicycle gears. Anyway, I recorded these live as audio from the OSMOSE rather than sequencing them. Each performance of a sound uses a loop of a different length, so that they're never in sync. That gave me the kind of atmosphere I wanted, but it wasn't quite right at that point. I realised it was missing some randomness. Bitwig to the rescue. Bitwig has plenty of modulators, ways of generating values that change over time to control aspects of the sound. On each sound effects track, I set up something like this. First, I used the tool device, which allows the volume and stereo panning to be controlled. I used a couple of random modulators to do this, so that the sounds always came from different places in the stereo field at a variety of volume levels. One interesting thing about Bitwig is that you can set a seed value for the randomness. This means that once you've established a pattern, if you don't edit anything from that point on, the random values will follow the same curve every time. So you can rely on the same behaviour on every mix, which can be very useful because you don't want things getting in the way of each other. If there are any clashes, you can simply re-randomise the seed value and try again until it's right. So, my friends, this is the end. Well, the end of this video. I hope it didn't scare anyone more than necessary. Assuming you're still here and haven't run away in terror, please remember to leave me a like and maybe a comment below. I'm working on part 4, The Seafarer, right now, and that's going to be an interesting one about chords and voice leading among other things, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. You can also follow me on Bandcamp where I release my music. If you like what I do, please tell your friends and bring them along. I wish you all well, and until next time, mind how you go.